friends, welcome to Carrie's Culinary Crafts, where we talk all things food. And today I'm going to continue with our outside cooking, and I'm going to do another smoker recipe today. Here I'm using some mesquite chunks and I'm placing them in some water. You need to soak, your wood chips or chunks, whatever you have. You need to soak them for at least 30 minutes prior to using the smoker. So here I just added a bunch of chips to some water and let them soak. Now I plan on smoking for a long period of time, so I'm going to use more wood chunks and bigger wood chunks than what I normally would for a shorter period of smoking time. Today I'm going to go ahead and do 3 racks of ribs. So I made sure I picked some big chunks of wood because I'm going to at least smoke them at least 5 to 6 hours today. And here I have all the seasonings that I'm going to do my rub for the outside. I have pink Himalayan salt. I have some fresh ground pepper. I have some onion powder, some smoked paprika, some regular paprika, and mustard powder, cumin, garlic powder, and for my sweetener I have coconut sugar. Now you could use any type of sweetener you want. You can use sugar, you can use brown sugar, you can use whatever type you want, but because this is a rub, you definitely want like something hard. I'm not using honey or anything. That'll come with the sauce. So here I'm just going ahead and placing all the seasonings in this bowl. Now I have 3 racks of ribs, so I'm basically tripling the recipe. So I went ahead and put in about 3 tablespoons of smoked paprika and 3 tablespoons of regular paprika. And I believe the majority of the other spices, I'm really only going to use about a tablespoon or more or less, with the exception of the coconut sugar when I get to that. This is a 2 tablespoon scoop, so I used 1 scoop, and that was the black pepper there. Now, if I remember, I will try and link this recipe down below that I use. And every time I do a rub, I do things differently. And here is a pink Himalayan salt. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more than a tablespoon. So there's a tablespoon there, and I believe I put a little bit more than that in. And then I believe the rest of these I'm going to do about a tablespoon. And that would be your onion powder and garlic powder. And this is mustard powder. I might not use quite a whole tablespoon of this. I think I might use like half a tablespoon of mustard because I didn't really want the mustard flavor coming through too much with this recipe. And then here I have some cumin, and go ahead and use a tablespoon of cumin. And then as I was doing this, I did realize I forgot the chili pepper, and then I'm also going to add some red pepper flakes in with this. I like my ribs to have a little bit of a kick to it, not too spicy because my younger son loves ribs, so I don't want it too spicy, but I do add some red pepper flakes. Here is the chili powder, and there are my homegrown pepper flakes. And I'm going to use about a tablespoon of chili powder, and then not quite a tablespoon of the of the chili flakes. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the coconut sugar. And like I said, friends, you can use whatever kind of sweetener that you'd like. I'm going to use 6 tablespoons. You know, like I said, I am tripling this recipe, and the original recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. So now I'm just going to go ahead and give this a really good stir just to make sure all those seasonings are very well combined before I go ahead and put them on my ribs. Okay, and I'm not sure, here I'm picking out some whole peppercorns that I found with my fresh ground pepper. I just grind up peppercorns that I have, and sometimes those peppercorns don't get completely ground. Okay, and here are the 3 packs of ribs that I am going to smoke today. Now I'm going to go ahead and get these out of the package, and I am removing the silver skin off of the back of the ribs. Now this is something you do not have to do. I prefer to do it just because I like to cook mine till it's like falling off the bone, and and when you have that silver skin, it kind of keeps that meat intact with the bone. Not that it's a big deal, but it does tend to be a little bit more chewy, but it's not something you have to do. I find that it's really easy to do because all you need to do is you need to slide a knife. You go to the end bone and slide the knife underneath that end bone and lift up the silver skin, and then you get a paper towel so you can grip it because it's real slippy. So if you use a paper towel, you definitely can get a much better grip on it, and you just basically just pull it right off of it. It'll come off in one piece. Sometimes it might slice into 2 separate pieces, but usually it comes off in one nice big piece. So it's fairly easy to pull off of ribs. But like I said, you don't have to if you don't want to. I usually just take the 5 to 10 minutes. I think it only took me about 5 minutes to do all 3 of these ribs. And then I cut mine into serving size portions. I usually do um, 3 or 4 ribs into a serving. So if somebody wants like a smaller serving, then you can have a 3 serving, and then, or like 3 ribs. But then if you want a bigger serving, you can take one with a 4 ribs. But I usually divide like this whole rack of ribs into 3 sections. And I am generously coating both the front and the back of all of these ribs. Like I'm using a lot. It's gonna look like it's like totally covered, and you might think that it's a lot of seasoning, but it really isn't. You really need a lot of that to soak into the meat. And the seasoning's on the bottom. It's not, you're really not going to be eating that because it's on the bone portion, but it does soak in between the bones to get that meat that's in between there. So you definitely want to give them a really, really good coating, and I always make sure that I pat them, just so that the spices will stay on the meat whenever it's cooking. Now here I went ahead and I prepared my smoker. I turned it on. I turned it on high to start with, just to get it up to temperature, because I want the temperature for the ribs to be around 250 degrees. So I put it on high. Once it reached that temperature, then I went ahead and added in all of my ribs. And all of these ribs, I'm sorry, has the rub on it that I had just previously made. I didn't use all of it. I used about 3/4 of it, and then I will use some more of it into the sauce that I make that will go on top. And you may have a little bit of seasoning left over. I just keep it on the side of my stove, and then anytime that I'm cooking in the next few days, I'll just use that rub as a seasoning for whatever it is that I'm cooking. Don't want to waste anything. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and make my barbecue sauce that will go on the ribs at a later time. I have my homemade canned ketchup here, and I have this big gallon jar of honey, and then I have what the seasonings that was left over from my dry rub. Now, basically what I do is I start out using a half and half recipe with whatever sweetener you're using and the ketchup. Now, and the sweetener, you could use maple syrup if you'd like. You can use jelly if you like. You can use fruit syrups if you'd like. I have done it so many different ways, like any like peach preserves that you make, or if you have peach syrup or anything like that, you can use that as your sweetener. Today I'm just going ahead and making the basic barbecue sauce, where I'll use 50% ketchup and 50% honey, and then I'll add some of the seasonings to it. And then you will also see I'll add my Italian blend to it, because I always add that to barbecue sauce. And then I'll go ahead and taste it and see how it tastes. And sometimes you might need to adjust it. You might like it a little bit more tangy, so then you'd add a little bit more ketchup. If you like it a little more sweet, then you'd add a little more honey. Now here I tasted it and it was definitely more sweet than tangy, so I went ahead and added more ketchup to it. I do like to taste the sweetness, but I like it tangy more than I like it sweet. So I went ahead and added more ketchup, and I will take another taste test and see where we're at that point. See if I need to make any other adjustments or if we're good to go. And I guess I decided that I needed a little more seasoning. And a little more salt. And, barbecue sauce is just kind of a trial and error thing. You just make it to your taste, make it to what you like. You just start with your basics. You start with, a sweetener and a ketchup. Start with 50-50 and then build upon that. I do try to use whatever rub that I used on the meat. I do like to add that to the barbecue sauce just to keep that flavor going. Um, but if you like to add an additional, like if you want it more garlicky, then go ahead and add garlic. It's all up to you. It's what you like. Now there, apparently, everything was good to go. I gave it the thumbs up, so we're good to go. Now here's what the ribs look like after 5 hours of smoking. They are looking delicious. So at that point, I'm going to pull them out one at a time and put the barbecue sauce on them. Now I'm going to put the barbecue sauce on both sides. You'll see me, I'll flip it over here in a minute, and then I'm wrapping them in foil just to kind of keep my smoker a little clean. I'm going to put it in the foil so the barbecue sauce doesn't go all over my smoker. So, and I'm going to baste that and wrap up all of those ribs, and then I'm going to cook them for another hour, and I will then pull them out and check the temperature. here you'll see that this is the last of my ribs after I have coated them all on both sides with the sauce. Now I always make a lot of sauce because most of us, in my family anyway, we love extra sauce on ours. So I will go ahead and stick these in the smoker, and I will let them cook for another hour, and I will check the temperature. And at that point, if the ribs are done, now your ribs need to be 145 degrees for them for safe consumption. You don't need to overcook them. Just because they're pork, that does not mean you need to cook the heck out of them. You just need to make sure that they are at least 145 degrees. So what I do is I usually go to about between 150 and 160. I will check all of them. I will open them all up. If they are at that temperature, then I will go ahead and pull them off, and I will just let them sit in the foil on my platter until we are ready to eat. You definitely want them to rest a minimum of 15 minutes. So, and if they are not up to temperature yet, then just let them go in the smoker. Just let them take all the time in the world that they need, because the longer that you cook them, the more fall off the bone they will be. Now I'm going to make a side salad to go with the ribs, and I wanted to make some kind of a dressing, for the salad. And the first thing that I always do when I make dressing is I look in my fridge to see if there's anything in there that needs to be used up. So in there I found some leftover veggie dip that I made when I put out a crudité platter and had some veggies and dip out. And then I found a half of an avocado because I had a egg sandwich with avocado that morning, and I thought, you know what, I'll just use the rest of this avocado. So I went ahead and cut it up and stuck it in that veggie dip. And then I also found a partial bottle of ranch in there. Now I normally make homemade ranch, but sometimes if I don't have any, I always have bottles of ranch on hand because my son likes to dip everything into ranch. Everything from pizza to veggies to everything. So and there was a little bit in this bottle left, so I figured I would just add this to it. So it's kind of like a creamy avocado ranch dressing. But I used up the rest of that veggie dip, and it actually turned out really, really good. And that's what's kind of nice about dressings. You're always making them to taste. So if you're putting things in it that you normally like, then most likely it's going to be a pretty good outcome. So I'm going to go ahead and keep stirring this. Now, because that avocado was cold, it's not really chunking up really good. So I'm going to get my immersion blender out just to get it into a more smooth, creamy consistency. nice creamy consistency, I'm going to go ahead and um, give it a little taste and to see what all is need to add to it. Now I have all of that dry rub over there, so I'm going to um, added about a half a tablespoon in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and stir it and taste it, see how it tastes, see if I need to adjust anything else. And it was really good. So that was a definite hit. So remember, when you're making dressings, just take a look in your fridge and see if you have anything in there that you need to use up that might just go very well in a nice dressing or a sauce or something like that. And stay tuned for the finished results of the barbecue ribs. And remember, friends, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and click that subscribe button so you can be notified every time I shoot out a new video. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, friends.